I totally understand the hype behind this Malayalam film. It has all those cool elements. But just having all the ingredients for a dish is not enough. You also need a recipe, a good recipe. So, how was the recipe for this film? Let's talk about it. Hello guys, I'm Nuna Prince and I finally watched Rifle Club, directed by Ashik Kapoor, a very requested film to watch and review. And I actually watched it live on the React channel. The watch long is available. You can actually watch the whole film with me and know my thoughts on each of the scenes. Now the first thing to talk about is that it's a theatrical film. It is meant to be watched in theater and experience it. I totally agree to it, but sadly it wasn't playing near me, so I had no other choice. But I do believe that storytelling works anywhere you watch it. The impact of scale may not be there on a small screen, but the impact of storytelling will always be there. Now, there is some context behind this film. The people involved behind this project are friends, are directors, writers, actors who know each other really well, who came together to work on this film, which mostly happens at a single location, and they had a good time and made a fun film. It has an interesting premise, full of cool things, and very enjoyable. Be it Hanuman Kind with all his swag, be it Anurag Kashyap as a menacing villain, be it the badass women in the film, or the Dilesh Pothan's entry. There's a lot to be enjoyed. But for me, overall it was a one-time watch, and that is a letdown considering the premise and the setup. It had so much potential. It's basically a home invasion film where people invading are very dangerous, but the film does the opposite. It flips. It's the people of the Rifle Club who are more dangerous. On paper it just works. It's hunters versus the hunted, but the execution is not that simple. I feel the screenplay of this film lacks efficiency. The setup could have been cut short, and over that the amount of characters in the film, that just brings in multiple issues, with the running time being just 1 hour 51 minutes. In that limited time, how can you give justice to each one? Now if you look at the villain side, there are few of them, and thus easier to give them justice. That's why they stand out, be it Hanuman Kind or Anurag Kashyap. They leave the maximum impact. But when you look at the members of the club, there's just so many of them. Even if you give them moments to shine, very few of them would make a mark. Most of them would be forgettable. And because of that, you also need to spread out the cool moments between them, which actually dilutes it. Now let's come to the balance between the hero and the villain, who are very well defined in the film. And how do you get the best conflict between them? You must have heard this line before. When an unstoppable force meets an immovable object, when they collide, you get fireworks. And that's what was missing in the film. Now through the film, it's mostly our presumption that the villains are ruthless, because the film never shows us that. We do get a scene at the start, but it's not that strong enough to tell you how bad they are. They are just gun dealers. And with that presumption, when they walk into the Rifle Club, we get that big surprise. That interval moment is crazy. How unhinged everyone was. These badass villains who walked in slow motion are nothing. And we also had this visual metaphor going on with what's happening in the club to what's happening in the forest when they're hunting. And in the second half, now it's time for the comeback of the villain, who is the tiger. Again a metaphor, who will come back stronger and strike. But we never see that. He's easily taken down. And that's why the fun is just drained out. The climax feels very underwhelming, considering the setup and the build-up we are having. And the big reason for that is also the action design, which adds a lot of value to such kind of screenplay. It makes it engaging, but I felt it was quite weak in the film. We got some cool headshots, some cool movements, but I wanted some clever thinking, some maneuvers which outsmarts the opponent. But we didn't get it from either side. Again, I feel if there were fewer characters, you would have been more creative with the action. Now during the live, I took the example of sports. The memorable matches are the one which are very tight, where there's a lot of fight and struggle, when the opponents are equally strong and going after each other. That becomes entertaining. Take cricket, the T20 World Cup final. We were almost out. 30 ball, 30 runs, Klaasen on strike. And from there, how things changed. Even in the last over, anything could have happened. Even the Football World Cup, Argentina was winning 1-0. Then by the 90th minute, it became 2-1. And then 2-all. Extra time, the penalties. That's what makes it exciting. You're at the edge of your seat. Anything could happen. One-side affairs are never that interesting. But if you consider a match between a top team versus an underdog team, and if they defeat the top team one-sided, that would be epic. Maybe that's what we wanted in this film. The Rifle Club's underdogs. They're just people who have good aims, who use rifles, opposite a mob, a gangster. They have automated guns. And the underdogs took over them, defeated them. But it wasn't fun because we never saw how great the villains are, how powerful they are. We never got to experience that. And that's why the clash never reached a peak. Now with the writing, there were a lot of ideas and layers they were trying to introduce, but everything just felt surface level. There was this whole angle of an actor coming to learn, and there were a lot of references they are using through that. There's a shout out to Mammootty also, which maybe for a Malayalam audience who understand the context would work well. But overall, if you look at the story, it doesn't really add anything except for the reason for that couple to run and come to them so that the villains can show up here, which actually just gets sidelined. It didn't matter if they are there or not. So there are a lot of unnecessary routes taken to reach to the same point. It could have been streamlined. So this was my analysis, and one could say, why are you analyzing? Just enjoy, have fun. And yes, that's right. But for me, I find fun in breaking down the film, to remove the top layers of just entertainment, to dive deep into it and understand it better, that how the machine of the film is working. And if you like that, you can check out this video also. Do leave your thoughts in the comments below. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let's chat, and I will see you next time.